Greetings, YouTube. More talking heads last night on the Headline News Network, and they were talking about the Palins. The Palins apparently can't keep out of the news. But today, it wasn't Sarah Palin, it was her daughter, Bristol. Because apparently, at the moment, Bristol Palin is the ambassador for abstinence. I want to stop for a moment, and I want that to sink in. The teenage girl who was raised with an abstinence-only sex education, who got pregnant and had a child out of wedlock, is now the ambassador for abstinence. With hypocrisy of this caliber, she has a long and fruitful career in the Republican Party. Now, I could care less of whether she got pregnant as a teen, or whether she was out or in wedlock. But I know that the neocon demographic that Sarah Palin likes to pander to does care about these things. So I can't imagine that this is anything but some kind of crisis control move on Sarah Palin's part. And the thing is, abstinence-only sex education is an absolutely intellectually bankrupt policy. 95% of all people have premarital sex. 95%. That means that the abstinence-only policy only functions 5% of the time. If it succeeded 95% of the time, I still might question it, because it would have a 5% failure rate. But a 95% failure rate? That's a policy that needs to be tossed into the dustbin of history. It is absolutely useless. And anyone who abdicates it is either a fool or has an agenda, and I can guarantee you that your best interests are not part of that agenda. But I think that there's a bigger issue here, and the issue is virginity. Why is our society treating virginity as a commodity? At one time, the sacred institution of marriage was nothing more than a business transaction between a groom and a father. The groom would give a large sum of money or property or something to the father, and the father would then hand over his daughter. It was a lot like a transaction over livestock. And of course, the woman had no say in this matter. And the reason the man was concerned about virginity is that the groom wanted to make sure that any children that were issued from his union with his new bride were his. That he wasn't, going to be paying for the upkeep of a child that wasn't his blood. Which sort of makes sense, I guess. But, a child's a child, and I don't think that whether it's related to you or not really has anything to do with it. If you love them, you love them. But because it was a transaction, the man wanted to make sure his bride was a virgin. So that's why at one time virginity was considered part of the commodity of a bride. But it's the 21st century now. Virginity doesn't really have any meaning. Society places a meaning on it pointlessly. Religions place a meaning on it pointlessly. And remember, 95% of people are having sex before they get married. And just the idea of waiting until you get married to have sex is absurd. Sexual compatibility is a major component of any relationship. And waiting until your wedding night to have that kind of thing would put so much stress on a relationship, I can't imagine how any marriage under that kind of stress would survive. Or at least be healthy. But why don't we get society and religion out of the virginity business? Why don't we let this be an individual decision? We train our children, we give them the information they need to perform safe sex, we give them access to all the birth control they can carry, and then we let them make a decision for themselves. They decide when they want to stop being a virgin, on their own terms. Because in the end, it's an individual choice. It's always been an individual choice. It always will be an individual choice. And if it's done that way, there won't be any hypocrisy involved at all.